Okay, two stories about flying. See, have a look at the first unit. Have a look at the first unit. I told you to mute yourself. Okay, see the very first unit, his first flight. Fine. Now in this chapter, his first flight, this is the story about a seagull. Children, you all can hear clearly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Yes.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
in this story, this particular chapter has two parts. The first part is his first flight. The second is the black aeroplane. We are doing the very first part. The main theme, the main content of this particular unit is that many a times in our lives, whenever we try to take the first step of our life, we hesitate in taking the first step. That very first step may be a fear to us. We need something to overpower that fear. And in this chapter, this young seagull is very afraid of taking the first flight. And if we take it symbolically, the first flight refers to the first step which a child takes in his or her life. कुछ भी नई शुरुआत करने से पहले many times it happens that we have hesitation in our life. Same way here, this seagull also hesitated in the first flight. Okay, I'm beginning with the text. You all keep your book open and then simultaneously keep writing the meanings as I'm telling you, same way exactly the way we do in our class. Okay. The young seagull was alone on his ledge. Ledge is the tip of a big cliff. Cliff is a very big boulder. Boulder means the chattan. So the end of that boulder is called a ledge. So the young seagull was alone on his ledge. His two brothers and his sister had already flown away the day before. It means this young seagull was afraid to take the first flight. The elder brother and sister had already started flying. It means they did not hesitate as much as this one hesitated in taking the first step or the first flight. He had been afraid to fly with them. Somehow, when he had taken a little run towards the brink of the ledge, brink is the edge, the ending point. So, as he was moving towards it, attempted to flap his wings, means that first step, that first movement, that first flight was making him so scared, that seagull, that he was unable to take the first step again. He was afraid of that. The great expanse of the sea stretched down beneath. Expanse is the vastness or the hugeness. The sea was very big. The cliff was very high. So the depth was too much, and because of that depth, the young seagull was very frightened. It was such a long way down, miles down. He knew very well that even if he tries to take the first step, unable to balance, and if he falls, he would get right beneath into that sea. He felt certain that his wings would never support him. He was very sure. So he bent his head and ran away back to the little hole under the ledge where he slept at night. It means the very first attempt was a failure. He couldn't fly. So frightened that he went back and slept. So very scared that couldn't dare to take the first flight. Even when each of his brothers and sisters, whose wings were far shorter than his own wings, ran to the brink, they flapped their wings, they flew away. They were able to do, but this young seagull hesitated. They flapped their wings and they were able to move, they were able to take their first flight. He failed to muster up courage. Muster is to gather or accumulate. वो इतनी हिम्मत नहीं जुटा पाया जितने उसके elder brother and sister could do it and take that. And take that plunge which appeared to him so desperate. Plunge is the deep diving, going into the depth of something. So he couldn't take that. His father and mother had come around, calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening him. Here basically means that at times, many a times, when we are trying to do something new and we hesitate, and our parents know very well that that particular first step is necessary for you in your life, obviously they would try to encourage you. They would expect from you that certain efforts should be taken by you on your own. Every time that spoon feeding is not possible by the parents, you have to undertake any kind of responsibility. So here again, when the seagull for one day was unable to take the first flight, the second day parents scolded because they wanted the seagull to take efforts on his own. Okay, so they called to him shrilly, upbraiding him. Upbraiding means scolding him badly. So they scolded and threatened to let him starve on his ledge. Now this is the strictness by the parents. Parents at time get so strict कि वो punishment देने की भी सोचते हैं. If you do not do this, if you are not doing this, something which is really good for your own sake, if you are not doing this, we wouldn't give you this particular thing. तो यहाँ पर भी क्या हुआ? The same thing happened. The parents scolded and they even threatened that that particular day, that child, that seagull wouldn't be provided with any food unless he flew away, because they expected the seagull to take the flight. But for the life of him, he could not move. Life of him मतलब इतना ज़्यादा डरा हुआ था that he couldn't take that flight, because he felt he may lose his life. If he couldn't take the first flight, he may fall down badly. Then, that was 24 hours ago, means now another day had passed. Since then, nobody had come near him because all were annoyed. Nobody came, everyone annoyed. Children, I should see every one of you holding books and writing simultaneously. Keep writing the way you keep doing in the class, that should be continued. Okay. The day before, all day long, he had watched his parents flying about with his brother and sister. It means brother and sister, they could fly properly and the parents were encouraging and supporting them in order to help them in their first flight. Perfecting them in the art of the flight. Okay, whenever you get to learn something new, parents would encourage and motivate you. सेम वे यहाँ पर उस यंग सीगल के ब्रदर एंड सिस्टर ने जब उड़ना सीख लिया, द पेरेंट्स वर ऑल्सो सपोर्टिंग देम टू मेक दैट दो सीगल्स परफेक्ट इन देयर फ्लाइट्स, टीचिंग देम हाउ टू स्किम द वेव्स एंड हाउ टू डाइव फॉर फिश. Seagull, skim the waves means touching the surface of the water and flying high. and diving for the fish. Seagulls feed themselves on fishes. So, for those fishes. He had in fact seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it. Herring is a kind of fish and devour means gulp it down, swallow it down. So the young seagull says that he saw his brother catching hold of it and then swallowing and enjoying that fish. Standing on the rock while his parents circled around, raising a proud cackle. It means when the elder one was able to catch that fish and was enjoying that fish, the parents were very happy and they were encouraging that yes, finally, not only the first flight but also the first prey was caught by the brother of the young seagull. समझ में आ रहा है बेटा? All of you here? All of you can understand well? Put your thumbs up, children, if things are very clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's continue. And yes, mute now. And all the morning, the whole family had walked on the big plateau midway down the opposite cliff, taunting him with his cardis. Okay, now the ones who were able to make the flight, the ones who were able to catch the prey, they were being appreciated. But this young seagull, parents were annoyed and they tried to, what did they try to? They tried to neglect that young seagull because he was not even taking efforts, he was not even trying to attempt any such task of bravery. So they felt that the seagull was a coward and something should be done about it. The sun was now ascending the sky. Ascending is rising in the level. Blazing on his ledge. Blazing is burning bright on the ledge and faced the south. He felt the heat because he had not eaten since the previous nightfall. Parents had punished. They had told they wouldn't provide him with the food if he doesn't take that first step. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge and standing on one leg with the other leg hidden under his wing, closed one eye, then the other, and pretended to be falling asleep. Still they took no notice of him, parents still unbothered. He saw his two brothers and his sister lying on the plateau and they were dozing with their heads sunk into their necks. They were fast asleep. They had their food, they had been appreciated by the parents and now they were nicely dozing. But this young seagull was feeling hungry. His father was preening the feathers on his white back. Preening basically means with the usage of the beak when the birds cleans the feathers of the child. So, his father was preening the feathers on his white back. That basically symbolizes the outpour of love by the father towards the child. This preening was being done for the brother of the young seagull. The young seagull was neglected one. Only his mother was looking at him. Mother was standing on a little high hump on the plateau. Hump is the protruding shelf, something which is high in level. Her white breast thrust forward. Now and again, she tore at a piece of fish that lay at her feet and then scrubbed each side of her beak on the rock. So this way, mother also was busy having the prey which she had in front of her. The sight of the food maddened him because he had been very hungry, the food hadn't been provided. How he loved to tear food, scraping his beak now and again to wet. Wet means sharpening the teeth in order to enjoy the next prey or the next meal. Gaga, he cried, begging her to bring him some food as a child, calling out for his mother because mother is nicely having food and the child is hungry. So calls out for his mother that some food should be provided to me even. And she screamed back derisively. Derisively means again in a manner showing that I just hate you. You are stupid. That way, somewhat the mother reacted because she herself was annoyed with the young seagull. But he kept calling plaintively. Plaintively means sadly. Still, although the mother scolded, although the mother didn't want to help that child, basically the mother had some idea in her mind. She wanted to teach young seagull a lesson. अब कुछ सबक सिखाने के लिए एक strict step तो लेना पड़ेगा. So one such strict step was being taken by the mother at that moment. But the child is calling the mother again and again. So here the word plaintively means sadly. Because he was unable to understand that I am calling for my mother and still my mother is not listening to me. And after a minute or so, he uttered a joyful scream. His mother had picked up a piece of the fish and was flying across to him with it. So the child was happy कि शायद मम्मा को मुझ पर प्यार आ गया and she is coming back to give me that piece of fish because the mother had approached the child and started circling around the seagull. Okay. Eagerly tapping, no sorry, here we continue from here. He leaned out, eagerly tapping the rock with his feet and trying to get nearer to her as she flew across. The mother was hovering around the child. The child took a step forward. Why? Because the child was very hungry. भूख इतनी तेज है that it started taking or proceeding towards the food which was in the mother's beak. Okay. But when she was just opposite to him, she halted. Her wings were motionless. Flapping the wings refers to the flying. And motionless wings means stability. So she was still in the sky, not flying in front of the child. The piece of fish in her beak almost within reach of his beak. He waited a moment in surprise, wondering why she did not come nearer. If mother intended to give the child food, why wasn't she coming nearer? Why was she there motionless? But maddened by hunger, he dived at the fish. So the hunger had overpowered his mind so much that he pounced, jumped onto the fish, which was in mother's beak. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into the space. And now here I tell you, this was a trick adopted by the mother. And that trick was adopted because she was standing on the edge of that ledge. And when that seagull pounced upon the fish, he fell downwards into the sea. So here, see the word once again. With a loud scream, he fell outwards and downwards into space. Because the cliff was too high. The depth was too much. So here he was into space. Then a monstrous terror seized him. Monstrous terror seized. Why did that seize him? Because the seagull was very afraid to fly. And his heart stood still. He could hear nothing, but it only lasted a minute because the next moment he felt his wings spread upwards. Now, this happens in life now. Many a times, when a particular situation, a problem comes into our life, until and unless we encounter that problem, how would we be able to find a solution to it? ठीक है? So यहाँ पर what happened was the same thing. Mother tried that the child should. It was basically a plan made by the mother that when the child would pounce, so while pouncing she would take herself far away and the child would fall down, and basically the seagull would be obviously be making the first flight. And वही same चीज हुई. जैसे ही it started falling downwards, it started flapping the wings. The wind rushed against his breast feathers, then under his stomach and against his wings. He could feel the tips of his wings cutting through the air. He was not falling headlong now. Headlong means with the head downwards. Headlong is falling with the head downwards. Okay.
5 घंटे कौन पढ़ाते हैं हमें?
Karan, kindly mute yourself. Karan Chandwani. Nuisance in the class and nuisance here even. He was soaring gradually downwards and outwards. He was no longer afraid. Yes, whenever we are able to undertake that first step when in problem, after undertaking that first step, that initial terror goes away. Okay, there is fear only in the fear of death. The same thing happened. And when he had encountered it, when he had won over it, that fear, he was no longer feeling frightened of it. He just felt a bit dizzy because falling downwards and doing it for the first time. Then he flapped his wings once and he soared upwards and then started singing. His mother swooped past him. Swooped is that swish, that steep movement downwards. He answered her with another scream because mother was very happy that finally the plan which she had made was successful. So mother was happy and now she has come to appreciate the child. Then his father flew over him screaming. He saw his two brothers and his sister flying around him. They were curvetting and banking and soaring and diving. All these basically tells about the different types of movements being made by all the seagulls around that little one. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly and commended himself to die and soar and curve, shrieking shrilly. So now here, once again, this young seagull himself was very happy that finally he was able to make that first flight. He was near the sea now, flying straight over it, facing straight out over the ocean. He saw a vast green sea beneath him, with little ridges moving it. Ridges refers to the waves. Okay? And he turned his beak sideways and cawed amusedly because this seagull was very happy with the first attempt which he had made so successfully. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. Green flooring here refers to the surface of the water, the clean surface of the water. Okay, so here how they were taking their flights up over the water surface. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly. Beckoning means signaling someone to call. Okay, so अब यहाँ पर they were onto the surface of the water, and now that young seagull who had now learned to fly, the elder brother and sister was calling or inviting him over the surface of the water, because now they would teach him how to dive to catch the fish inside. He dropped his legs to stand on the green sea. Green sea is the surface of the water, the brim of the water. His legs sank into it. He screamed with fright and attempted to rise again. See, birds basically, when the water is shallow, they could walk into the water. But when the water is deep, the birds skim over its surface. Skim is that slight touch and then ascending into the sky. And उस skimming में ही these creatures would catch their prey. Okay. Screamed with fright, attempted to rise again, flapping his wings, but he was tired and weak with hunger. Tired because for the first attempt made and then diving so into the deep that he was just wondering how to go about. Weak with hunger, and he could not rise because he felt exhausted by a strange exercise. What is the strange exercise over here? The strange exercise is skimming into the surface of the sea, diving into the surface of the sea in order to catch prey for itself. Then, his feet sank into the green sea, and then his belly touched it, and he sank no further. He was floating on the surface of the water, and around him, his family was screaming, praising him. Their beaks were offering him scraps of dogfish, and he was able to make his first flight. The child was able to make his first flight here. Okay. Now, the theme when we discuss of the chapter, this particular chapter, the main thing which we have to keep it in our mind is that many a times our parents outwardly seem very strict to us. But when they are so very strict to us, do they really intend to be that strict? Or it is just that outward superficial strictness which has a hidden message in it, a lesson for us, a lesson for us to be taught something by them. Because until and unless the parents are strict with us, until and unless they are strict with us, we wouldn't be undertaking any such step in our life which would help us to be successful. Here again, had the young seagull not taken the first step ahead, had the mother not been that very strict with the young seagull, he would have never been able to take that first step ahead. Okay? And when he tried to take that first step, it was then only he was able to learn how to fly. Because when we get exposed to those difficult things of our life, when our life gives us many problems, then only we get to learn certain things. Okay? So, with this we finish with our chapter.